just to let you know, I am a walker. Sorry about that. Yes, I used to be an English teacher. Do not hold that against me. And yes, I am from the IRB, so don't throw anything at me. Okay. As she said, my name is Sarah, and I joined the IRB team probably 4 years ago, I want to say. Left the CTRU group, working on mostly cancer clinical trials, and ended up at the IRB, which has been a learning adventure. But actually, I have gained an immense amount of respect for our IRB members, being from the submitting side of things, submitting central IRBs to the IRB, working through those processes with them, and now being on the other side of it. They do a pretty good job. I'll just throw that out there for the IRB. They're fantastic. So I'd like to just take a minute and introduce my boss, Miss Gretchen McMasters, who joined us from Arizona about 6 months ago. So yeah, Gretchen, stand up a second. Sorry, I'm putting her on the spot. And she, no, they're okay. They like you, I think. So she has done wonderful things since she has been here, just a lot of changes that we've been wanting to make. She came in with a lot of push. And there's Crystal. I was like, who is this woman in the back? I haven't seen you forever. Okay, so yes, Miss Gretchen is fantastic. If you have any questions or just want to talk through some things, she is very accessible and happy to help in any way. That's not true. It's not true at all. No, she really is fantastic. It's been great working with her. Okay, so on to this. Central IRB use of W has been around since I've been here, since I joined CTRU. CPRC utilized WIRB, okay? We have grown over the years in the amount of central IRBs that we use. Previously, CPRC utilized WIRB, and the CTRU group institutional-wide, even though it originated within CTRU mostly, utilized Chesapeake. It has grown exponentially, which you will see in our slides. Not only has our use grown of central IRBs, but the central IRBs themselves have grown and merged, consumed other IRBs into their ranks. Okay, so let's get started here. Just skip that one. So I have no financial relationship in relation to this educational activity, okay? All right, so learning objectives. What are we going to do today? We're going to demonstrate the knowledge of Central Institutional Review, CIRB, okay? You'll hear me say IRB of record, CIRB, we'll get to that slide in a minute. Just the workflow of how things flow here at WVU, what you need to know to submit to the WRB, submit to your central IRB, and what's going to be required on down the line. And review the reporting requirements when using a CIRB. So this previously was not a very structured outline. So we are working on that. And here we are today to present that. Okay, so I need volunteers. Anybody really? Gretchen wants to volunteer. Padma. I have to walk with this. Okay, so who wants to be a beloved sponsor? She does. Gotcha. I'm going to let you be the WVU person. Okay, now, I'm giving you these now so you know your role by the end of the presentation, okay? So you can, you don't have to stand up, you can sit down. I won't make you feel super terrible. So I'm gonna let Gretchen be the WIRB. Okay? Now, who wants to be a central IRB? Pat does, don't you? By the way, Miss Gretchen, this is Pat over here in the back. She was like, oh, I want to meet her. Well, you guys just met. There you go. Okay, who wants to be another central IRB? Layla? Of course you do. I knew you did. Oh, maybe. I can get this out. Okay, we'll just stick with that right now. We might come back. We might volunteer some more people. I'm sorry about that. This is way more fun than teaching English, by the way. I'm just kidding. I actually really like English. Don't hold that against me. Okay, overview. Terms, some terms that we need to know, okay? IRB of record. It's a central IRB, CRB, external. You'll see them described as all of those different things. What is an IAA? I get this question a lot, and there's a really good reason we call it an IAA, because try to say interinstitutional authorization agreement really fast. It doesn't come out very well. So we call it an IAA. The term has changed a bit because everybody got tired of saying interinstitutional authorization agreement, because it really is an agreement between a couple of IRBs to get together and work on a project, and we'll cede to you. It's really all it is. SIRB, single IRB review. You're going to be seeing this coming out a lot. Federal mandate, all NIH-funded studies have to receive one single IRB review, okay? So we'll get to a little bit of that. CRB workflow. My goal within this, you'll see a slide. It looks like it has tons of information on it, and it does, and that is purposeful, okay? So you can print it out or take your copy and hang it up on your wall or your little cube, I don't know, wherever you're at. So you can reference back to it and say, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, okay? The reporting requirements. We're not going to be the IRB of record in this. The WIRB won't be the IRB of record. So what do we want to know, okay, throughout the course of the study? Just some summary and reminders, and then, of course, some questions. I'm going to ask some questions, too, to our lovely volunteers. Actually, we're all going to. Okay. So this is my attempt to be graphical or something. I don't know, but I tried. Where do we start in this process? Okay. Does your study qualify? What are the fees? Who can submit? How do we get there? Okay. Now, you will see this under construction sign a couple of times in this presentation. That is on purpose as well. Okay. There is a method to my madness. Promise. I try to convince my kids of that, but they don't listen. So within this, we know we're not perfect. And there may be something that you come to us and say, hey, this really isn't working, okay? And we are very happy to take a look at our processes, see if we can change it and what we can change it to. So if you have ideas, please let us know, okay? We are happy to take a look at, because really the reason, you know, it's just always been done that way doesn't really cut it very much anymore, okay? So we are very happy to take a look at our processes and see what we can do to help out our researchers, okay? So this is half of the crazy amount of information slide, okay? But it gives you a nice outline, something that you can just reference back to. But where do we start? So who's the sponsor? Over here. You have the sponsor. Okay. So how do we start with a central IRB study? Somebody tell me. Yes. Correct. Okay, so we have sponsors that are pulling at our investigators all the time. Hey, do my study, do this study here or that. Okay. We also have investigators that go out and see studies. Okay. For instance, our cancer cooperative groups. Okay. They're like, oh, I need a study on that, or I want to do a study on that, and they pull it. Regulatory team, here you go. Okay. So that's where we're going to start. Study identification. Okay. What's our next step? Who's going to be the IRB of record? Okay, so the structure has changed a lot, okay, with how sponsors are handling these central IRB use studies, okay? So sponsors now have contracted with all of these central IRBs, okay? So they come to you and like, hey, we already have WIRB as our IRB of record. Can you use them? Is that about how the conversation goes? I'm guessing now. I've been out of the world for a minute. Okay, so, you know, and that is one of the reasons we expanded the use, because previously it was only allowed at Chesapeake, and then I kept getting hounded by my former coworkers at CCRU. Can we use it? I'm just kidding, but seriously, they really did. So WIRB Copernicus, okay, came about. Then we had Advara to that listing. Now, who comprised Advara? We'll get to that, but if you know, raise your hand and impress us. Carrie. Chesapeake and Schulman, you are right. Okay, so we saw a lot of merging happen. WIRB Copernicus pretty much owns the CIRB world. And then we have Quorum that's kind of standing out there on their own, and obviously NCI CIRB, okay? So IRB of record identification. This also applies to your IAA Smart IRB, okay? So instead of having a huge central IRB board that's out there that's commercial for profit, okay, your IAAs and SIRBs are very often one-on-one institution. It can be multi-site, gets a little hairy when it's multi-site, but they've come up with some new platforms to help with that. But those are more institution to institution. It's not, nobody's getting paid for this. It's just we're cutting out having 16 different determinations from 16 different IRBs and only relying on one IRB, okay? Because at the end of the day, every IRB has to abide by the same regulations. All right, so submission process. This is the fun part. I will say this has changed from what was previously outlined. Okay, so listen, Padma, listen. I don't want to have to tell you again. No, I'm kidding. I will tell her again. So prior to protocol or site submission to the IRB of record, okay? Before you submit to the central IRB, you are now going to need to go in to KC and start a submission to yield you an IRB protocol number out of KC, okay? Because really, how it was working before, you went to your central IRB, got everything, and then if you remembered, you decided you were going to submit a duplicate, I used to refer to them as duplicate submission, to the WIRB, okay? Now, it's more of a registration. It is registration. But that's only if you remembered or had that as a part of your process or knew that it was a part of your process, okay? So now the central IRBs will not process your protocol without that WIRB number, okay? That's just some risk mitigation on our end, streamlining the process a lot better, okay?
All that we're allowed to use are aware of that requirement, all the central IRBs.
Yes. We actually have Advara, that is, we are meeting with in January as well. Quorum, we don't have too many studies with Quorum to really. Well, they should. We did talk to them, didn't we? We did talk to them, didn't we? Advara. Yeah, we'll follow up on that. How about that? Okay. All right. So, but you guys know, right? We're not going to have to rely on the central IRB to do that. You guys are just going to know. Because you're here today, right? Yes, everybody's excited to be here today. Okay. So, Another part of the submission process is your local context language, which they all have facilitated that as well, but we'll see how that goes as well, okay? I'll get to the rest of it, I promise, okay? Starting point. What's the first thing? Does it qualify, right? We need to know that first. It needs to be a multi-center, phase 2 through 4 above, okay? Sponsored clinical trial, all right? Everybody nod your head. You're here, yes, okay. I need people to talk to me. I'm a talker, okay? So just feel free to jump in whenever. And this is my tribute to English, okay? Who, what, when, where, why, how much, okay? My mother was an English teacher, old habits die hard. All right, so does my study qualify? Once you've established that you're good to go, you can work with a central IRB, how do I choose which one? Very often now, your sponsor's choosing for you, okay? But on our end, it's really based off of your funding source, okay? Do you have private industry funding? If so, you see a listing of the IRBs that are out there that we currently have contracts with, okay? And over here, federal funding, you have your NCI CIRB and your single IRBs, okay? So Smart IRB, some of you have asked questions about that. Some of you are working with Smart IRB. Eventually, it will be a beautiful thing, so don't get discouraged on it, okay? I know that some of you are discouraged on Smart IRB right now, okay? But as with any beginning program, there's going to be some growing pains, right? Yes? Okay. So we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there a little bit. But I just want to throw out that caveat. It is a platform for IAs, for federally funded studies. Okay? You go in, the investigator adds in all of their approved documentation, and it's a way for you to, in one place, correspond with all of your sites that are jumping on the study. So it is a portal for multi-institutional studies, okay? Where nobody's getting paid to do this review. It's just because we've been mandated. All federally funded research now has to have a single IRB. So this is the platform to do so, okay?
Who's behind that platform?
Well, NIH. So NIH gave grant funds to have this set up.
So it's not another central IRB?
No, it's just a platform for IAA use. So it's all the information that's inputted into it is through the institutions. It is not a, you don't have an IRB panel that's reviewing the protocols within it. So our IRB reviewed a protocol, okay? You have a determination from us. Within your protocol, you said you were working with University of Kentucky. That's a great one. I love ADSU. And give me another institution. San Francisco, okay? So those are your two sites. I have no idea how you're collaborating with them. I don't know how you knew them, but whatever, okay? You're working with them. You will go in there and select them as a participating institution, okay? They have to have been signed into IRB, so you have to join IRB, okay? Smart IRB. And then you just portal that information in. Every institution already has their local context language, all of that stuff agreed out through Smart IRB. So it's just a platform for collaborations and single IRB review.
What IRB reviews?
That is determined by, say, okay, one of your studies. Dr. Feinberg, let's go with her. She says, I'm the lead PI on this. Okay, so WVU is gonna review it. It's just the investigators are figuring out who's gonna be the IRB of record, okay? There's some in there right now where we're the reviewing IRB, some in there where we're the relying, and it's designated in there. And you just say, yes, we will rely, or yes, we are the big kahuna. Yes.
And the Smart IRB is just the mechanism to do so.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. Yep. But we have to be smart about it, so it's smart IRB. Is what? Oh, what is that date? The date where, I think it's January 20, 2020, or January 21st, 2020. Yeah. 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 No, it's going to save everybody money that way. So, you know, they make us build something to save them. No. The smart IRB. So it has to be, it was designed for federal funds. Okay. Now, we are a very nice IRB, and we do not charge presently for a lot of things. Okay. You see that presently? For a lot of things. Okay. Including investigator-initiated studies. Other IRBs might not be that way. Okay, so you got to think about that when you go into it, right? But it is set up for federally funded studies. But I've seen a lot of surveys go through there, and it takes out the paperwork of an IAA, the email paperwork, and puts it within a system is really what it does. Okay. All right. See, I love questions. All right, so along the way, what do we need to know within this? Okay, IRB of record, say it's WIRB. You're going to submit your initial through them, modifications, continuing reviews, event reporting, your closures, okay? What does the WIRB need to know in this? It's up there, okay? So you do your initial submission. Once you gain approval from, for instance, WIRB, you come back to your submission in KC. It's 5 questions, okay? 5 sections, very simple. Ooh, that created an echo. Very simple, you go in, you attach your required documentation. We will get to that in just a minute. There's limited event reporting, okay? So this was one of the pains for me, for Central IRB use, okay, when I was in CTRU. I had an event that I had to report to a Central IRB, and I had to do a duplicate submission of that event to the WIRB. Okay, so then when I came to the IRB, I had an event that sat on the agenda for 6 months, waiting for a determination from the Central IRB. Right? I've seen some that were 8 months out. It wasn't a risk. It was fine. But that wastes a lot of people's time, agenda, all of that, okay? So within that, we've also changed the process for the limited event reporting, okay? So basically, determination of non-compliance, you get a letter of determination of non-compliance back from the Central IRB. You let us know, and we'll get to how you let us know, okay? And then your closures, obviously, because we want to know the final status of the protocol conducted here at WVU. Because at the end of the day, the WIRB is still responsible for the conduct of research here at the institution, regardless of if we are the IRB of record or not. You see the restrictions within it that there are, okay?
So,
yes, ma'am.
Clarification. So if there's a delay in getting IRB, WVU IRB approval, and you enroll the subject, and you initiate the study after you have IRB approval from the IRB?
No. Now, previous to my IRB life, I would have argued that, okay? But being on the IRB side now, realizing, hey, it's actually our next on the chopping block here. We want the WIRB, because, you know, we've had some situations where the Central IRB was going a little crazy on something, And the WIRB swooped in and was like, oh no, we're going to mitigate this for you. Okay. So please don't think that we're just trying to be nasty and make you, do duplicate submissions. There's actually things that we need to know and can help you navigate some of these things that come up with the central IRBs, because we've been working hard to develop some good relationships within those entities. So yes, to answer your question, change that. No, you cannot enroll until you have that. And central IRB submissions, unless there's something major that I have to send it back for, or Miss Lilo, who's still around, has to send it back for, it's typically a really quick turnaround time, because it really is just a registration to us to let us know what's happening. Okay. Any more questions on that yet? I know you guys are just writing down questions back there, right? Yes.
Are you going to define limited reporting?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Administrative review. Okay. You can even print this out and do check marks if you want. I'm just kidding. That was my goal in my mind anyway. So the registration. Your KC CIRB protocol type submission, okay? Somebody tell me what you do once you gain IRB approval from the IRB of record. No! What do? Yes, good job, Layla and Michelle. So you go in and you finalize your submission to the WIRB. Okay? So what do you need to attach? This is one of the questions that I'm asked very often, because it's only defined in a lovely brief section of our SOPs. So you need the approval letter from the IRB of record. We need to see that we are not going to be responsible for a full review of this. Okay? They have approved it, what they've approved it as. The approved sponsor protocol, approved informed consent form. Now, I do know that this portion is going to be changing. For instance, NCI CIRB, my favorite pastime, is changing how they function essentially with informed consent documents. There's going to be a required separate HIPAA waiver now. Okay, so that is changing a little bit. We're going to work through that though. But the approved informed consent document, because once it's approved by the IRB of record, technically it cannot be edited, correct? So I know this is going to blow some of your tops right here. All right. If you submit an informed consent form and you print out the informed consent form with the W watermark from a central IRB, did you edit the approved informed consent form from the IRB of record? Yes, you did. Don't use that one. Okay? I'm sure nobody's going to come down on you if you did, because it's a watermark from the WIRB, but it can cause confusion. So you just submit it. Like I said, it's just a registration. We've even updated our wording on our central IRB letter, thanks to Ms. Tanya up here. So it's a little bit more clear on that, okay? But you cannot edit an approved informed consent document, okay? So any drug device information, for instance, if the study has an IND within it, okay? Just submit what you need to. Your investigator brochure, device documentation, FDA determination letter, something like that, okay? Because we are still asked, I need to stop doing that. We are still asked what studies are being conducted here, functioning under an IND or an IDE. For instance, in June when we were audited by the FDA, that was one of the criteria that they wanted to know. What studies do you have here that, regardless of who the IRB of record is, that is under FDA purview? Okay. And we did great. We had no findings, by the way. Ching for the IRB. Ancillary review approval letters. So what is that? PRMC, okay. We don't have very many scientific review committees that are standing review committees that pull out approval letters, okay? Those are fantastic. The IRB loves to see those. So if you want to start a scientific review committee, by all means, jump on that, okay? Try it. I think we have a nursing board that produces letters, and then PRMC. Those are really the only two that produce ancillary review approval letters, okay? All right, so when it comes back to you from us, once we process the review, you will get an acknowledgement, right? Everybody's, it's not an approval, it's an acknowledgement, okay? Because we waived our jurisdiction to approve. We can no longer approve for you. We only acknowledge. And since we're talking about money now, there is a $1,000 administrative review fee, okay? So, I probably shouldn't say this. When I came to the, she's like, don't say it. When I came to the IRB, I was like, man, they were crazy. They're getting no money. They allowed for all this central IRB use. What happened? Because seriously, I mean, you know, everybody's got to make a living, right? But so this is something that just needs to be built into the budget. It's not coming right from the investigator. The sponsor is the one that's paying for it. So you just need to make sure you include in your budget an industry sponsor protocol administrative fee, okay? And you will get the acknowledgement letter with all the beautiful wording that is now in there, thanks to Miss Tanya helping us, okay? So limited event reporting. We all know that there are going to be events on every study, okay? If there's not any events, you're too perfect and people are going to start questioning you, okay? Right? Yes? So this is the wording that has been added to our acknowledgement letter. I almost said approval letter. Acknowledgement letter, okay? So it is very similar to what you will see in the majority of the approval letters that will be updated. But now you can see, following receipt of a determination from the IRB of record, because the WIRB can do nothing except completely shut the entire study down. They can't do that. They can pull the plug on a study until they receive a determination from the IRB of record, okay? So no longer do you need to do a double submission at the same time. Say you're reporting something to NCI CIRB. Nothing until you get a letter back from them, okay? No longer will those go to the WVU convene committees. They will be seen only at the chair committee. We have a group of individuals that have either been previous chairs, legal counsel sits on the committee, Ms. Gretchen, all the chairs and vice chairs, and they will be reviewing anything that comes back that is, you know, a UPERTSO, a non-compliance that is neither, no, that's the NCI's favorite wording, non-compliance that's neither serious nor continuing, or any suspension, anything like that, okay? Because those are things that we are required to report on as well. All right, so you have your UPERTSOs, your unanticipated problems, serious adverse events, all of those different things, right? Any questions on this? No? Good? I knew you were going to ask a question. That's fine. Okay.
So let's say that you're only sharing the identified information. The other stuff is.
I love the identified questions. Yes.
Okay. So where does the tech transfer get into this?
Not in my life. Was that an easy answer?
That's not the right answer.
It kind of is the right answer. So, and I described this to Miss Gretchen so eloquently, she loved it. The WIRB has very often in the past taken upon themselves mantles that we are now crushed underneath. Okay. Tech transfer technically has nothing to do with us.
It has nothing to do with the identified data being shared between institutions. That's what it sounds like when it submits.
So it's de-identified, right? Does that imply? Nope. If it's truly de-identified, there's a difference between coded and de-identified. There's a difference there, okay? Now, the WIRB needs to see that, hey, it's truly de-identified. And then at that point, because the WIRB also functions as the privacy board, which is my favorite task now, yeah, we just need to see that it's truly de-identified within that, okay? Yes. Yes. If you were just sharing, now if it's human subjects research, if it meets the definition, you're still going to have a protocol submission, okay? But you're not, okay, for me, once you have a submitted protocol, it's approved, whatever it is, because I'm assuming you're not going to be doing central IRB use with the identified information so much, but once it's approved, boom, boom, done, I'm good. If it's truly de-identified and you're just sharing with somebody, there's no HIPAA regulation within it, okay? Now, if you are sharing identifiable information, okay, for clinical trials, often that's seen within the CTA, right? Your clinical trials agreement. We don't really see that. We collaborate with OSP to make sure that things are appropriate, but very often those collaborations happen with your limited data sets. So how many of you know what a limited data set is? Yes, right. Okay, limited data set. I learned this too when I went to the IRB, only because I had to redo the form. 3 identifiers within it, okay? 3 of the 18 HIPAA identifiers. That's all you can include in a limited data set. Otherwise, if you want to put 4, then it becomes what I refer to as a full data use agreement, okay? So if it's de-identified, okay, that's why you see de-identified submissions as NHSRs. It's de-identified data. If it cannot be linked back to that subject, it no longer qualifies within the world. Yes, Miss Gretchen, I knew she was going to pick up this. There's been a lot of controversy over this. So for example, did all of you know that the IRB only actually requires 1 training? That's it. But how is it tracked? How can people find out the training that everybody's doing? Who do they come to answer the questions about training? The people who are the hub of the training, who have all of the research protocols in front of them, okay? So we get used a lot, no. We do, and we understand why, but please know that if you want to call and cuss me over conflict of interest, don't. Because I didn't do it, right? Okay, yeah? You guys can smile, okay? I'm actually a nice person. Yes, ma'am.
So they said if we're using CRB and we report the SAE to CIRB, what is our request to submit those to local IRB?
So if there is a determination on it, okay? So say they come back and say it's a UPERTSO, okay? So a UPERTSO is an unanticipated, somebody correct me in this, because I get it wrong every time. Unanticipated problem involving risk to subjects or others, okay? If they deem it as a UPERTSO, that needs to come to us, big time, okay? If you have a death on a central IRB study that is, it meets the criteria for immediate IRB reporting. If you think you need to report it, that would be one you would probably want to report, okay? All right. I'm not gonna stop you reporting, okay? I review all the events, so I'm not gonna stop you from reporting anything, obviously, because sometimes there's things that you, poor Pat back there, she absolutely knows this is not an immediate reporting event, but my sponsor's telling me I have to report it. Well, go ahead and report it and let's talk about it. And I'll just say this was not required for immediate reporting. And simple as that, okay? We understand that sponsors have different ways of doing things and we are happy to help accommodate that for you. But yeah, so if it becomes a major event, okay, we want to know. All right. The deaths are a big one, okay? And then if it is deemed a UPERTSO, okay? So if it meets the criteria, you have unexpected, all right? Serious. What's the last one? I should know this off the top of my head. What? Bam, thank you, Padma, okay? If it meets all three of those, you're obviously gonna be reporting to your central IRB. They shoot you back a determination letter, just submit a simple notify IRB, okay? Simple as that. Very often, nothing will happen on it. We'll just be like, good job, central IRB. If it becomes a UPERTSO, something of that nature, we'll follow up with them and make sure it was reported appropriately to the regulatory body it needed to be, okay? All right, so events, closures. We need to see the IRB of records determination letter. We need to know what they thought about it, okay? A research-related event form. I'm sorry, it changed again. So previously, 4 or 5 years ago, we had 3 separate forms. We had a UPERTSO form, we had an SAE, AE form, deviation violation form, right? They combined into one form. That was my year-long project in life. Actually, it was like 6 months, but it became the unanticipated event form. So somebody submitted to me a waiver, okay, which it's not unexpected, it's planned. So we expanded the form to add those in there as they will become somewhat more prominent, I believe, okay? So it is the research-related event form now. It's not yet posted. We haven't formally released it, but a lot of you are on an email train that I started to research point of contacts, just to let you know what it'll look like. And if you have suggestions for those forms, please let me know, okay? We're happy to, because something I think flows wonderfully might not flow so wonderfully, okay? So please let us know if things need to be adjusted. Okay, and other applicable documents. For instance, the actual SAE determination. So say you're utilizing Encore. You have your PI determination checkoff. Our reviewers like to see that, okay? Closures, the closure approval letter and the W closure form, because we do need to know the final results, status of subjects, et cetera, okay? All right, and I promise we're almost done. You won't have to hear me talk that much anymore. All right. Isn't End of the Road like a Boyz II Men song or something like that? Anybody ever listen? Bingo. Okay. And then you have arrived at your destination. Okay, so phase ones. They're no-go presently, currently. Working on that. Phase ones have to be reviewed by the WIRB, okay? And I say presently and currently because we do have a lot of requests for phase ones to be reviewed externally, okay? So we're working on establishing some relationships that hopefully that level of trust is there, Okay, because at the end of the day, remember the WIRB is responsible for the conduct of the studies. And the risk of those obviously is much more than your phase 2, phase 3s, whatnot. So Miss Gretchen, within 3 months of her being here, had to send a shout out of no more sponsor-driven submissions, okay? This was a result of an issue, a big issue, okay? That we were able to resolve, thankfully, but sponsors very often are submitting on behalf of sites, okay? Unless there is an absolute wonderful correspondence train going on there, something's gonna be missed or some type of flow isn't gonna happen, okay? Now, some of our more tenured research groups could probably handle this wonderfully, okay? So please don't sit there and say, oh, this is forever, this is what it's gonna have to be. For right now, this is what it is, okay? Until we can, because research exploded here, okay? I didn't even know we had some of these units doing research. I didn't even know there were some of those departments, and they were popping up in broom closets across the university, okay? So that is the reason for that, is mitigation of risk to our investigators, to our subjects, most importantly here, and to the institution, okay? So that is the reason for that. Now within this, please, if you remember nothing else from this talk, I'm sure you guys are gonna remember everything. Know the difference between a protocol submission, so a single site submission, right? Okay, single protocol site submission, and just the site submission to tap into an already approved protocol, okay? There is a difference. I had a question from Ms. Padma saying that one of the sponsors said that we had stopped everything and you could no longer submit a site submission. You had to do a full protocol submission. That is inaccurate, okay? You can still do your site submissions to tap into an already approved protocol. That's what happens with NCI CIRB all the time. That's all they have, because they have their protocols on lockdown. So that is still acceptable, okay? But knowing the difference, okay? So if you have a sponsor that comes to you and says to you, hey, you're good to go ahead and enroll, and you haven't submitted a site submission, don't enroll, okay? I'm doing that look I do to my kids. Don't enroll, okay? Make sure that you have that ironed out. Make sure you're good to go, okay? Otherwise, you're gonna get into a bad mess. Considerations for the administrative fee in your budget. How do you build it in? Because if you put in there 2 IRB fees, the sponsor is gonna say, nope, we're not paying for that. And then you're gonna get a bill from the WIRB for $1,000. So make sure that you're building in your startup funds, or just add it in there simply as an administrative review fee, okay? For local context, because within the submission, we review your training, okay? Keep up with your training. We have the radiation sign off, we have IBC sign off. So all of those things that we institutionally have to account for are accounted for within the Central IRB protocol submission, okay? Local context considerations, your risk to injury clause in your consent forms, the HIPAA language, okay? So very often we're seeing WV medicine. WV medicine is actually just the label name. So make sure you're putting in your HIPAA information in the entities. West Virginia United Health System is the actual legal name, okay? So that's one of the updates that went out, I think, to a lot of you for Central IRBs. And the Central IRBs have this information as well, okay? So any questions on that? This is a lot of, okay? A lot of everything that we've said is right here. Print that off, hang it on your board. It will help you, I promise. Okay, any more questions? Yes.
So this was good information. Is there a plan to update SOPs accordingly?
Yes, ma'am.
Information out to all the research?
Yes, ma'am, there is. She keeps us in line, doesn't she? So we are awaiting the final release of the common rule. So OHRP regulations updated for the first time since like the 90s, 91, okay? So we have been, there's no point in releasing a huge SOP document and then releasing it again 2 months later, right? That's a lot of duplication of effort, and there's 2.5 of us at the IRB office, okay? So please just bear with us, okay? So within that, we are waiting on that release date of January 21st, 2019 to push out a lot of our information because our SOPs had to be updated for the common rule as well, okay? So you're gonna see a lot of information come out to you as of January. Some of that information that we've been working on, I went ahead and kind of filtered out to some of you all. If you are not on the POC email listing, let me know. Just send me an email and I'll be happy to put you on there. We're talking about trying to resurrect some coordinator meetings, regulatory meetings between a lot of our, so the IRB, OSP, all of those different research groups that you call and ask questions to anyway. Well, we're gonna just have, hopefully, fingers crossed, a monthly meeting where you can come and, you know, network, have a good discussion, maybe some lunch. I won't pay for it. I'm sorry. Miss Shelley's very nice and paid though. Sorry. But we're trying to do a lot of more educational outreach. Just please bear with us because like I said, there's 2.5 of us. And the WIRB has over 3,100 active protocols. So I thought I was busy in CTRU. I'm more busy now. All right, any more questions? No?
Regarding the information that was sent this week, do you have an idea as to when the new consent form template will be out?
So we do have them. Okay. I will look at my boss right now as to when she wants us to put them out. Yep. Here, I'm gonna give you this.
So I apologize because I can't always tell how loud. Yeah. Okay. So the question was, when are we going to release, when's the IRB going to release the new informed consent templates? Because we've got a lot of changes that are being mandated through the common rule. And so those changes are going to have to go into the informed consents. We should be able to get them out within.
So when we originally discussed,
And one of the holdups on that too was both Sarah and I went to Primer in San Diego, which was in mid-November, which is public responsibility in medicine and research, their annual conference. And there had been a lot of conversation about confusion and a lack of guidance that had actually come out from OHRP in regards to many of the revised changes to the common rule. So the hope was that when we went there, we were going to be able to come back with some more established information so that we didn't have to roll something out and then turn around 6 or 8 weeks later, 3 months later and roll something out again. I can't guarantee you that that won't happen, but I can tell you that we did come back with a lot of really good, solid information. And that information is going to go into the consent form. So we should be getting the template out pretty quickly. So that's it. And also, has anybody got questions about any of the information that went out this week earlier on the common rule changes, just since I'm standing here with a microphone in front of my face and it gives me an opportunity to answer questions?
I had one more question about that.
Okay.
One of the new requirements is to have the consent available on a public website?
Correct.
And what the plan is for that?
Okay, so this is one of the things that when they came out with this rule, they didn't think about what it was going to take to make that happen. And that has been one of the big complaints over the last couple of years about the common rule changes, where they're asking us to do things, but nobody's telling us or giving us any guidelines or guidance on how to make it. Well, and that's basically what they did. And I think everybody agrees with that there were really any burden reducing provisions. And to talk about that for just a second before I get to your answer, in regards to whether or not or why we didn't institute any of the 3 burden reducing provisions that they came forward with, it's because they didn't reduce anybody's burden, okay? And it was so complicated in initiating that what it would have meant was, if we had instituted what they call the 3 burden reducing provisions, come January the 21st, which is the cutoff date and the implementation date, effective and implementation date for the common rule changes, every protocol that we had used those reducing provisions on, would have had to have complied with everything else. So you know what we're going to do is this, and a lot of the universities are doing this, so we're not in the minority category with this, we're actually in the majority category. We've chosen that if your protocol has already been submitted and approved, and it's already in the system, you got an approval letter, and you're clicking along doing your research, it will continue to fall under the old rules until its time of closure, unless you decide you want to update it. If you decide you want to update it, you have to update everything to the new rule, which is going to include your consent forms, if you have those, and all the other rules. We can guide you through that process when the time comes. But I think a lot of people are going to look at it and say, you know what? It's not worth it. It's already in here. It's already moving along. It's kind of like my car. It's running. Do I really want to take this thing in now and overhaul it? I don't think so. Come the 21st of January, anything that is approved on that date has to comply with the new regulations. What that means, and this is the reason why we wanted to get the information out to you when we could, what that means is if you have protocols that are in the system pending approval right now, new protocols, new initial protocols, that fall under OHRP common rule regulations, they have to get approved before January the 21st to fall under the old rule, or if they're still pending come January the 21st, you're probably going to have to pull them out, put them into the new protocol applications, resubmit those, and they will have to be approved under the new rule. Unfortunately, that's a federal regulation. They gave us no grace period. So there was no opportunity to transition. And even though it would have been wonderful if they had given us a grace period, they didn't. So that's one of the challenges. Now, your question about clinical trials and that. So who's going to be responsible for that? Okay, so clinicaltrials.gov is the obvious place to post. All right, and there are a number of different locations that you can post, and we probably need to go ahead and get something out on those. But because clinicaltrials.gov is sort of like the easiest, I don't want to say it's easy, but the most well-known, the most common and well-known place to post, it's going to be clinicaltrials.gov. Now, if your study is a sponsored study, it is the sponsor's responsibility to post. You do not have to post. But if you have an investigator-initiated study that's here at the university, or one of your PIs is the lead principal investigator on this, then it will be our responsibility to post that. And that falls in. Well, and I was going to say, and that will fall into the PI's lap. Or whoever is doing the work on behalf of the principal investigator that knows that that falls into your lap. And that has not been something that they've been really super clear on. Should be one of the great reasons why if we had Encore as a system throughout the entire university and it automatically linked to that, it would be able to put that information in for you. So that's going to be a challenge. There are groups in universities that are setting up entire sections and hiring people just to handle IAAs, clinical trial reporting, and single IRBs. Unfortunately, we're not one of them. But good news is we have been approved to hire some new people. So we're going to be increasing our staff at the IRB level. This is going to be the first time in probably a number of years, quite a few number of years, and we're very enthused about that. So, and we also understand that most of our research, not all of it, but certainly a large percentage of our research is clinical. These are going to be the people that we're going to be hiring. So,
Thank you so much for clarifying.
you're welcome. You're welcome. I would like to say I apologize. I do, but I didn't come up with the rule. But yeah. Has anybody else got any questions about the company?
Add on top of what she said. So, I have felt the pain of an update from both the researcher side and the IRB side. Okay, within that, we very much so limited any updates. Okay? We want to do a major overhaul of the questionnaire. Our goal is to only have one questionnaire, okay, where it's not based off of protocol type. Because we spend our time in the office fighting over protocol type. So we really want a brand new investigator to know what protocol type. Make sure it's all the we work on that. So we want to get away from these multiple protocol types, cut it down to the registrations, which is the CIRB protocol type, and have one flowing, beautiful questionnaire. Okay, where a lot of the decisions that are made anyway on the back end are made initially on the back end. And mess around with protocol type. That is our goal. So within the regulation changes, we very much so limited what we changed to specifically those addressing regulations. We only changed what we added. Okay, with the exception of like the funding source. Other people needed to know funding. Okay. So you will see those updates. Okay, you will see them coming through. If it's something set back to you after January 21st, you're going to see an update of questions. Right? Very limited. Try to limit that scope. Okay. So we did.
And you're probably wondering why. Because from the very beginning, one of the things that I said to groups was these questionnaires are clunky, they're hard to follow. There's a lot of replication in this, and quite frankly, there are a bunch of questions that are asked that you don't even need to ask. And so, and this goes to our SOPs as well. I think we've got, 324 pages or something like that. I'd like to see that puppy down to about 25%, because who reads it? I mean, really, all right? Very rarely, very rarely.
Tanya, that's
Okay.
it.
Tanya, but very rarely. And so we need to really smooth this process. But the challenge with the consent forms and making changes to the consent forms right now is we have concerns about making too many changes and what it will do to KC. And especially because that drop dead date on January the 24th is a federally mandated date. Last thing in the world we want to do is come out with 2 or 3, beautiful new forms and put those on the system. And then suddenly we go 2 days with no system. So that was my decision, and I will take responsibility for that, because there was some discussion. Can we go ahead and make these applications a little bit better since we're having to make the changes? And my choice was no, I don't want to take that chance. This is not the time. However, my hope and my goal is come at least mid-year 2019, we start looking at some new applications and some new processes for doing things. And while I'm sitting up here pushing things, I want to push flex, okay? The flexible application, or the NHSR flexible model application, which once again, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but substantially shorter than any other
It's 13
application.
questions.
Huh?
I said it's only 13 questions.
You know, that's right. Any other application that you've got out there is great for non-federally funded minimal risk studies. Use that application. Make life easier on yourself. That will work. Going to make changes to that form because we're still in the pilot phase. But really seriously think before you go in and try to fill out a request for an exemption, could this be flexed?